Grand Rising. It is February 23rd, 2021. I just spent about 20 minutes looking for something that I should have had already bookmarked, and I had to start my video again. So hopefully I can get it done quick because my son is kind of getting irritated with me. He wants me to play at 9 in the morning. So, today's topic is going to be linking sadism and narcissism together, and where those two things come from. And I will continue to do this, linking mental health disorders to this. But today I'm starting with that because obviously if someone is in the BDSM community, they are likely a sadist. And so, the majority of my stuff is dedicated to the man of the hour. And I want to remind everyone that most of my writings and my Facebook work was done almost a year ago. And after discovering this, so in terms of the man of the hour and some of the things that I wrote in that time, it was the initial assessment of his life, not necessarily where he is today. And I had full faith that this man would overcome his troubles. I didn't know what his troubles were, but I knew he had them. And not initially did I know he had them, right? I thought I was the problem when I walked in the scene. So if I didn't think he had any type of potential, I wouldn't have dealt with him. So, and for all the things that he has accomplished since our meeting, I am very proud. And then also I wanted to address a tarot reader. I forget your name, Miss Lady. You sound like you a country bumpkin, honey. Listen, I did not go banana or bonkers over banana, is what you said. You watched my video because you said the man of the hour. I didn't go bonkers over the banana. I did not go crazy. What you guys are not understanding is that abandonment issues cause a reaction that looks crazy. It's actually a brain injury. 2, I didn't go crazy over banana because that's not what I attached to. I attached to the emotional and spiritual fulfillment of the relationship, and the consummation was the sex. And whether he acknowledges that our first interaction was not something he wanted, we had several other interactions. I wouldn't say several. I would say a handful of interactions in which it still was a full circle of fulfillment. So that's what that was. I attached to that, and I didn't move too quick. Everything was divine, and eventually we'll get into that. I'm going to tell you how divine it is. Right now I'm looking at my screen. I got a synchronicity of 7-7. I opened this book to the first thing I'm going to read. I got a synchronicity of 2-2-2. It's divine. The lesson was karmic, but all of this was divine. Divinely guided to get this book out. Don't worry about if I need a lesson. I got it. And what I want you to do is spread the word about this. Don't worry about what I'm doing. Spread the word about this, please. Stop being nosy. See, the reason that I came onto that's what you're, positive something. Positive vibes. Listen, if you were positive, you wouldn't bother to read my cards about that. You would bother to pass on the word about what I'm trying to show you. That's why I came onto your algorithm, because you're not as positive as you say. Go ahead and watch my last video, Mask. And stay out my motherfucking business. Don't you pull them cards on me again. Anyway. This is how you get a sadist. Okay? So I'm going to start with, I'm going to start with a passage I forgot to read in the Worst Thing I Have Ever Done video. Because it actually fits into this. Once I get into narcissism and stuff, it really fits into it. You'll see it really well. So, for the adult chosen child, having a healthy support network is one of the keys to recovery. Bolstered by your friends, you lead a rich life. If you are married, your partner is free from the obligation to satisfy all of your emotional needs, and you diminish any tendency to rely on a child. If you are single, friends are doubly important because they are your primary source of support. But maintaining friendships can be a problem for people who grew up in enmeshed families. Because of the lack of boundaries in their family of origin, they tend to shut people out or let inappropriate people in. My problem was the first one, keeping people at arm's length. My method of avoiding intimacy was quite subtle. I had a lot of acquaintances, but I made sure I was a better friend to them than they were to me. I made sure I was always on the giving side of the equation. Not surprisingly, people found it hard to get close to me. You are a hard friend to love, a friend once told me, and he was right. The reason that I kept friends at a distance is a common one. I was so cut off from my wants, needs, and feelings that I couldn't let friends get close to me. I didn't want them to know what I didn't know. This meant I had constant patrol of my borders. I couldn't be intimate with anyone, and loneliness was a constant companion. I remember at one low point saying to myself, no one knows me and no one wants to know me. I had a lot of acquaintances and a lot of activities, but they were merely an attempt to hide my pain from myself and others. It is possible to grow up in an enmeshed family and have the opposite problem, which is to rush headlong into intimacy. Unconsciously, you want your friendships to be just as absorbing as the relationship you have with a parent, and you unwittingly cross over the boundaries that normally separate individuals. This is how I met the man of the hour. Your tendency is to have one or two all-encompassing friendships, or to expect every friendship to be intense and personal. 20 minutes after meeting someone, you bring up intimate topics of conversation, whether this person expresses any interest or not. You go into detail about your health problems, love life, and job frustrations. They know all about you in the first meeting. People with loose boundaries also tend to expect more from their friends than normal friendship role encompasses. For example, they may try to resolve deep-seated emotional problems with a friend. And these friends come in myriads of ways. It could be a work husband, a play cousin, spiritual guru. It can be a number of ways that friend manifests in your life. And this rarely works out because friends are rarely willing to bond with you to a degree necessary for conflict resolution. And if they do, then they would likely have loose boundaries just like you. So, that role is best handled by a spouse or a therapist. And to expect a friend to get deeply involved in your struggles is a setup for disappointment. Another consequence of loose boundaries is that they make people vulnerable to what I call emotional rape. People who crave intimacy are sitting ducks for emotional violation. Carlene, a 30-year-old homemaker, was especially vulnerable to smooth-talking men. Any man who came onto her was allowed into her life. A stranger at a bus stop, a plumber working on a stopped-up sink, a participant in a weekend seminar, any man who had a desire to get close to her was granted the opportunity. And some of these instant friendships ended in a sexual encounter, and some did not. But they all began as a result of her lack of boundaries. She had an open-door policy to intimacy. So, when we get into talking about narcissism, that is something that will be very evident when we start going through some of the signs, symptoms. And so then the next part that I'm going to read really quick, because we're specifically talking about sadism, so you need to understand where sadism comes from. Emotional incest takes on a decidedly different path. when the child is allied with a critical, abusive parent, then the child is used not only for emotional support, but for the release of anger and tension. The child may be treated kindly one minute and abused the next. Whatever emotion the parent happens to be feeling may be targeted at the child. And when a parent has such little self-control, often the family is dysfunctional in other ways as well. Domestic violence, poverty, alcoholism, drug abuse, or criminal activity may be a part of the picture. These are more obvious problems that mask the enmeshment, and many people who were raised by physically abusive or alcoholic parents, for example, belatedly discover that they were also victims of emotional incest. Because at first glance, there may appear to be a great deal of difference between these common forms of emotional incest. And what she's saying, it takes many forms. You have a best friend or a buddy is a type of enmeshment, or you have a romanticizing parent who turns to the opposite sex child for intimacy and companionship. And not the most important thing about these is that, especially for someone who had maybe a romanticizing parent, you can have a mesh of this. Your parent is critically abusive, your best friend, and using you for sexual intimacy. You can have, for me, for my father, he was romanticizing me, and he was my best friend. Where my mother was critically abusive and my best friend. Imagine what the fuck that. Oh God, you already seen it. You see what it looks like. This is what it turns into. This shit right here. I'm showing you me, so that you can see what other people are dealing with. They just hide it. I'm not hiding anymore. I can't. So, let's get into conduct disorder really quickly here. I forgot to load my links. Today I am reading from the books, I'm reading from articles, I'm doing a lot of research. I have already researched all this stuff before. That's how it was so quick for me to make the link. As soon as I read the books, I knew what I was reading. Like, this is it. They don't know how they don't know what this is, they don't know what this is, they don't know how this got here. I figured it out, that's it. So I've already done all this research, but for those who don't know, there is a link to narcissism and sadism. You can be a malignant narcissist and be a sadist, or you can be just a sadist, a sadistic narcissist. So, in order to get a diagnosis, to say that you are a sadist, here's what you... sadism is taking pleasure in humiliating someone or causing them pain. Okay? So, they enjoy hurting people, enjoy watching others experience pain, derive sexual excitement from seeing others in pain, spend a lot of time fantasizing about others hurting other people, even if they don't do it. I would tell a story, man. This individual, man of the hour, he used to constantly talk about this particular individual that he just could not stand and what he would do. They want to hurt others when irritated or angry. They enjoy humiliating others, especially in public situations. Tend toward aggressive actions or behavior and behave in controlling and domineering ways. A sadist can be found in BDSM, right? That's something that The entire culture is made of masochists and sadists. And so this is what the DSM-V with sexual sadism disorder, and what they have to do to get that to be considered a sadistic. Now, something very important is, well, okay, how do you get there? Where do you get someone who doesn't, seem to have any type of empathy in this way? Okay. It's something that you'll see in childhood. It's called conduct disorder. Most children will not be diagnosed with conduct disorder. Because conduct disorder in a child is kind of just recognized as excuse me. Conduct disorder is, hold on, I have an article for that. Let me just go to the article instead of trying to pull from my brain, because my brain is working really hard. So, conduct disorder is a group of behavioral and emotional problems that usually begin during childhood or adolescence. Children and adolescents with this disorder have a difficult time following rules and behaving in socially acceptable ways. They may display aggressive, destructive, and deceitful behaviors that can violate the rights of others. Adults and children may perceive them as bad or delinquent rather than having a mental illness. Again, mental illness is not real. It has all started here. So, a childhood onset occurs when the signs of conduct disorder appear before age 10. Adolescent onset occurs when the signs of conduct disorder appear during the teenage years. And unspecified onset means that the age at which conduct disorder first occurred is unknown. Some children will be diagnosed with conduct disorder with limited prosocial emotions. Children with this specific type of conduct disorder are often described as callous and unemotional. So, what are the symptoms? Aggressive conduct, deceitful behavior, destructive behavior in violation of rules. They are intimidating or bullying to others. They are physically harming people or animals on purpose, committing rape, using weapons. They lie, break and enter, steal, forgery. They can be very destructive. They skip school, run away from home. They use drugs and alcohol, and they have sexual behavior at a very young age. And boys who have conduct disorder are more likely to display aggressive and destructive behavior than girls. Girls are more prone to deceitful and rule violating behavior. So myself, I was never diagnosed with conduct disorder, but I did actually steal a car when I was a child, and then I lied about it, and I got away with it, actually. Sorry, Mrs. Mallory. I did that. Thank you for sparing me and not doing my fingerprints. Because now here I am telling you how I got that way. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, how do you get conduct disorder? Honestly, it's the repression. The repression of the chosen child is what causes conduct disorder, and it comes in 3 varieties of ways. Some of us were allowed to have needs but not to be independent. Some of us were allowed to have a great deal of freedom, but not to have needs. And let me start that over. I'm going to read that again. Some of us were allowed to have needs, but not to be independent. We were catered to and indulged, but kept immature. Some of us were allowed to have a great deal of freedom, but not to have needs. We were allowed to wander at will around the neighborhood, but were not given comfort and reassurance. And some of us were permitted to develop our talents, but were asked to repress our needs and emotions. We grew up to be compulsive achievers to hide an inner sense of inadequacy. To a greater degree than other children, we were not allowed to be whole. In exchange for love and a position of privilege in the family hierarchy, we had to give up a large portion of ourselves. Where does that go? Where does that go? It goes into destructive behavior. This is how you get conduct disorder. Conduct disorder is required to be considered anti-social. And at this point, I can say I probably am along the lines of antisocial now. And I, this is everywhere. Okay, I know a 14-year-old girl, well before the age of 10, who was experiencing the signs of conduct disorder. She's 14. I haven't seen her in about 2 years. I've known her whole life. She had a critical abusive parent. When you add a critical abusive parent to the some of us were allowed to have a great deal of freedom, disaster, a full-on disaster, a conduct disordered child. They're going to take out their anger and aggression that they received from their parents, and they have no boundaries, okay, because they're allowed to do whatever the fuck they want anyway. So now they've got anger and aggression with freedom. False freedom, because they're not free. But let's read. So the primary feature of antisocial personality disorder are consistent disregard for other people's feelings. This can include manipulation and deceit, as well as physical or emotional abuse. And another key component is a lack of remorse for wrongdoing. So me, I do have remorse for wrongdoing. I would imagine that, I can't tell, so I'm not even going to say that. Violent or aggressive behavior can be a sign of this condition, but some people living with this condition never behave violently. And I have been known to behave violently. However, that would put me under affective aggression. This refers to behavior usually directed at a person or object that triggered an emotion. It may also be redirected if it isn't possible to target the actual source. So punching a wall instead of another person. Instrumental aggression. This is an aggressive act that relates to a specific goal, such as smashing a car window to steal a wallet. Hostile aggression, and this is behavior specifically aimed at injuring or destroying someone or something. So, a diagnosis requires at least 3 of the following: disdain for authority and social norms, shown by continued illegal or law-breaking behavior, a pattern of deceit, including exploitation and manipulation of other people, reckless, impulsive, or risky behavior that shows disregard for personal safety or the safety of others, little or no remorse for harmful or illegal actions, a general hostile, irritable, aggressive, restless, or agitated mood, a pattern of irresponsible, arrogant, or disrespectful behavior, and difficulty planning ahead. How you get this? How do you get this? I'm going to read from Silently Seduced For those who experience covert incest as a child, playing the role of a surrogate spouse to both parents is devastating. Perhaps the most tormenting of the situations presented so far. The result is a loss of clear identity. One's inner life feels empty and agonizing. Awareness of feelings, choices, preferences, wants, and desires is lost under a deep sense of unworthiness and inadequacy. Outwardly, these people seem to be able to do it all. They are also capable of they also are capable emotional caretakers of others. They leave the impression that they have few cares of their own, and if they do, they handle them just fine. Yet there is a great pain in the experience of self for these people. They struggle with their own sense of femininity or masculinity and feel conflicted and guilty when attempting any relationship. That makes you antisocial. So then the last thing I want to read on this article, this article is healthline.com, health/malignant narcissism traits. So the last thing for NPD, the symptoms are a grandiose fantasy and behavior such as preoccupation with thoughts of personal success, power, and attractiveness. Little or no empathy for other people's emotions or feelings. A significant need for attention, admiration, and recognition. An inflated sense of self-importance, such as a tendency to exaggerate personal talent or achievements. A belief in personal specialness or superiority. A sense of entitlement. A tendency to take advantage of others or exploit people for personal gain. Arrogant or conceited behavior and attitudes. And a tendency to envy others and believe others envy them. So I have empathy for people. I don't actually struggle with attention, because if that was the case, I'd be on social media. If I needed that, I would not flee social media the way I do. I hate people noticing me. I've spoken on being portrayed as someone with entitlement, but I do not have any. I don't think I deserve shit. I don't take advantage of other people. I am a little arrogant. I'm not envious of others. That's like, and it's funny because I had a girl back in my youth tell me I was jealous of people, but she couldn't see. I was making comments. Anytime somebody was getting married, she would say something like, "Oh, she's getting married before me." Da, da. Oh, you're jealous. No, not really. I don't know her enough to be jealous, and I really just make the comment because you don't like it. But ultimately, I've always just stayed in my lane. I don't give a fuck what you got. I really don't. But I know somebody who does. So, these are 3 that I just broke down in the books. We just broke down antisocial disorder, antisocial personality disorder, narcissism, and conduct disorder. I am now, one more thing. The boys in high school that are supposed to me, conduct disorder, 14 years old, assaulting a girl. It's everywhere, but let me help you open your eyes to it, okay? So, now I'm going to read an article on narcissism from Psychology Today. I actually love Psychology Today. I just want you to know, though, I have read collegiate level books on this topic. These right here are just like self-help books from psychiatrists, right? But in order to make the link that I made, I had to have knowledge of these disorders. So I see it. When I say I'm going to break down the DSM-V and show y'all where all of these shits come from, I've already got it already up here. Like it's Munchausen. That's where that came from. Every single freaking thing. Transgender. I already broke it down. It's all in this book. Now, I will say, sexuality and homosexuality, transgendered identity, they weren't brought up in the book in the way that I see it. I feel like that's actually my own theory. But it's easy to bring it back when you actually like really read the book. I don't think they realized when they were reading it, especially because it's already been normalized. So when something's been normalized already, you have a tendency not to go back and reevaluate it. I saw it immediately because I never thought it was normal. Sorry. It's normalized. So therefore, that's why I participated. Ain't nobody gonna, right? But I literally can see every single thing in these books. And eventually I will get down to all of them, but this is an urgent message. So, a narcissistic personality, and again, this is from psychologytoday.com. A narcissistic personality is difficult for people who aren't narcissistic to understand because what's on the outside looks completely different from what's on the inside. Analysis of the narcissistic personality is made even more complex due to the many differences among narcissistic individuals. Theodore Millen suggests that there are 4 different types of narcissists. This is not widely accepted in the literature, but to be fair, there's not much about narcissism that is widely accepted beyond the obvious signs of the clinical disorder. So we've already talked about what that looks like. Perhaps research on narcissism is severely limited due to some of the challenges of studying it. Think about it. How many narcissists will voluntarily participate in a psychological study? And among those who would, how honest would they be in reporting how they really feel about themselves when their primary defense is upholding an image of power and superiority? One area of research I wish was easier to explore is the connection between narcissism and sadism. If a person is sadistic, it means that he or she derives gratification from punishing, harming, and abusing others. I'm particularly interested in the narcissism-sadism connection because a client of mine has a boss who is extremely sadistic towards her. Based on her description, my client's boss likely meets the criteria for narcissism, but with the additional component of the sadistic streak, which causes him to regularly punish employees in ways that make no sense. While there is often an overlap between narcissistic personality and sadistic behavior, not all narcissists receive gratification from hurting or upsetting others. So, to further expand, we must discuss the term gratification, which isn't the same as enjoyment or deriving actual pleasure. The gratification I'm referring to, the type narcissists seek, is called narcissistic supply. This refers to attention and admiration from others, which makes the narcissist feel noticed and special. In some ways, narcissists aren't so different from young children whose emotional needs are not met and who desperately seek appreciation from others. It says it right here, but they're still not giving that a name. So, those who find themselves in close relationship with narcissists see these inconsistencies that others don't. How the narcissist appears on the surface day to day is in direct opposition to how they feel inside. How can narcissists feel so bad about themselves but act like entitled kings and queens or gods? To those around the individual, it doesn't make any sense. This distortion, acting superior but feeling inferior, is a central component of the disorder. Narcissistic personality. A narcissist has 2 different selves, their real self and a self they wish they were. The narcissist's real true self is best conceptualized as a wounded child whose emotional development was arrested due to emotional abuse or neglect by early caregivers. The man of the hour does not believe he's a narcissist. And he goes on to say, who doesn't know that? Well, let me read it again. I had a lot of acquaintances, but I made sure I was a better friend to them than they were to me. I made sure I was always on the giving side of the equation. So, if you kept people at arm's length, they're only going to see that. They're only going to see the giving, selfless friend. And the selfless friend, you know, that would be a loose boundary. A friend mentions a problem and you try to solve it. You often feel that you know what's best for people or feel obligated to resolve their difficulties. That is a loose boundary. Selflessness. It doesn't mean that you're not a narcissist, baby. You just have really loose boundaries. And everyone around you, you know, let's do this side note right here. This is how you know that a narcissist loves you. When you are the only one who knows what they look like at the end of the day, they will keep everyone at arm's length so that all they see is the persona. I'm the bomb.com. I'm selfless. I am a good friend. Anyone who sees anything other than that persona is really close to them emotionally. Myself, that is why I see a lot of people behind their masks, because I am nurturing. Me, I'm right here. He's right there. They are also capable emotional caretakers of others. We're both right there in these books. We in this book. They wrote books about us, babe. Anyway. So, you know. Yes, baby. You're sorry? What's wrong?
Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm almost done. I'm literally at the last couple paragraphs, okay? You're doing a really good job. Yes, sir?
You tickled my neck.
I tickled your neck?
Yeah.
I did. I went like... I did do that.
I can't tickle on your neck.
I don't want you to tickle my neck. I'm good.
Tickle my neck again. Tickle my neck. Mommy, can't tickle my neck.
So, to get back to the article. Why are some narcissists sadistic and others are not? In my clinical experience, I have found that sadistic narcissists were more seriously neglected or emotionally abused in childhood than other narcissists. This is the pairing of the critical parent. The abusive parent, the critical parent, that's why. Many narcissists are difficult to get along with, have a grandiose sense of self, and won't take accountability for their actions, but they don't have a driving need to punish others. I have found that sadistic narcissists have a lower self-esteem than the non-sadistic narcissists, even though neither has high self-esteem. The most important part to understand is that the drive to punish or upset others on a regular basis typically stems from an individual having been on the receiving end of confusing, mind-twisting behavior from a parent early in life. Again, critical abusive parent. Nice 1 minute, mean the next. Damn, this shit is deep. I am dropping jewels on your ass, baby. This is it, right here. It's right here in this book. Let's heal some narcissists. Let's heal all mental health disorders, because all mental health disorders are in here. The last thing I'm going to read today in this book is about self-esteem, self-image problems. So if you're a narcissist, if you are antisocial, if you have conduct disorder, you are likely suffering from some self-image problems. There have been times in my life when I have been really full of myself, almost as if I had superhuman powers. I look down on other people and feel as if we were operating in two different leagues. At other times, I felt completely worthless, almost like an imposter. There seemed to be no middle ground. Where do you think that game imposter came from? By the way, for people who have children. So, the end of this article, he says, my hope is that readers can avoid relationship with narcissists, especially those with a sadistic streak. Those who have encountered a severe narcissist and gotten too close know how confusing and frustrating the experience can be. And I sincerely hope that anyone currently connected to a sadistic narcissist, whether someone at work or in their social life, can continue to educate themselves about narcissism and sadism to better protect themselves and detach as quickly as possible. Well, I failed that. And I don't mind when I say it. I don't mind. The shit was divine. What a karmic lesson it was. I got the antidote. Baby, I got the antidote. So, when I sit and I think about the man of the hour, I remember details of this story. He is a really sweet individual. He is so sweet. I wouldn't be able to feel the way that I felt about him if he wasn't a genuinely adorable person. I wonder sometimes, like, what did this man look like as a baby? I would just eat him up because he is so adorable in spirit. I know his story, and I feel so bad. How is someone supposed to have a normal relationship and they have been neglected every day of their little life? You know, I didn't do well to detach from this individual, but I found the root. I'm not running from someone with a sadistic streak. I'm not running from any narcissist. Not anymore. I'm going to just give them this book. And, if it takes them a little too long to catch up, then maybe I'll leave. But it says here that the most important thing that they need is a support network. The reason that narcissists are they get a bad rap. They get a bad rap. Run away. No, don't run away. Give them this book and help them. So, I'm trying to take away these labels. They are victims. And when I started therapy again, all of my labels were taken away, and I was just given the label of PTSD upon bringing them this information. Yo, this is what's been going on with me. Oh, is that what's going on with you? You have PTSD. You're not crazy. You have PTSD, baby. Let's help you. I met a man, and we spoke about hating abusers. However, I have extreme compassion for them because I know what I have experienced and what it caused. I'm not excusing what they're doing. I can only deduce and understand what abusers, narcissists, psychopaths, some of these more severe personalities have experienced. Looking back on the fathers of my children, all are very scary, like some shit you see in a movie. Maybe I am too. But I know their stories. They have severe abuse in their backgrounds, especially the last one. He was a child soldier in Sierra Leone's Blood Diamond War. That should have been my cue to go, right? But he was sweet. They are triggered by the closeness. The closeness is triggering to them because the closeness reminds them of a parent who was too close and abusive. It's a defense mechanism. I know they weren't trying to hurt me for real, but they did. And, there is one that didn't do me too bad that I will never fuck with them again. So, So, you know, this is actually how you get BDSM and kinks. BDSM has been around for a while, and what I'm trying to tell you is that covert emotional incest has been too. And we have normalized so many of these coping mechanisms that we don't see anything amiss. Okay, let's think about like Unbreakable. Bruce Willis' character, Samuel L. Jackson's character. There is a spectrum. Okay, so on this spectrum, a sadist needs a victim, and like a victim needs a perp. And this happens in our ways of coping with using sex and sex addictions, which we'll get into. Again, sexual addiction is a diagnosis now, so I found it in these books, and I will break down every single one, but specifically talking about BDSM because he is a sadist. So that's it for today. That's it. Y'all have a wonderful day.